Human development is multidimensional. It involves growth and change across multiple domains. Physical development refers to the maturation and growth of the body. Cognitive development involves the maturation of thought processes and the tools we use to gain knowledge, interpret the world, and solve problems. Socio-emotional development includes changes in personality, emotions, self-perceptions, social skills, and interpersonal relationships with family, friends, and peers. Development is also multidirectional. Across the lifespan, individuals experience both gains and losses, as some abilities improve while others decline. This principle reflects the malleability or plasticity of human development, our capacity to change and adapt across time. Related to this is resilience, the ability to adjust and thrive even in the face of adversity or challenging circumstances. Another key principle is that development is influenced by multiple contexts. A person's growth is shaped not only by biology, but also by where and when they live. Contexts include physical surroundings, social environments, and socio-historical influences. Age-graded influences, such as puberty or retirement, are predictable and tied to age. History-graded influences reflect unique historical events that shape entire generations or cohorts. In addition, non-normative influences, rare events that affect only a few individuals, also play a role in shaping development. Within these contexts, culture is especially influential. Culture encompasses shared customs, values, knowledge, and attitudes learned early in life through social interaction. Cross-cultural research once focused on comparing people across cultures to identify universal patterns. Today, research emphasizes how development is embedded within culture and shaped by it. Developmental science is multidisciplinary. Scholars from psychology, sociology, neuroscience, anthropology, and education all contribute to our understanding of growth and change. One central issue in developmental science is whether change occurs gradually or in stages. Continuous change refers to development that unfolds slowly and steadily. Discontinuous change describes more abrupt, stage-like shifts where people of different ages seem qualitatively different. Most scientists agree development contains both continuity and discontinuity. Another issue is how active people are in shaping their own development. Current perspectives emphasize that individuals are not passive recipients of environmental influences. Instead, they interact with and shape their surroundings, actively contributing to their outcomes. A third issue is the role of nature and nurture. Is development primarily driven by genetic inheritance or environmental influences? Today, scientists agree that both heredity and environment interact in complex ways to shape human growth. The scientific method provides a structured way to study development, pose questions, gather data, analyze findings, and draw conclusions. There are different research designs that we will go over. Data collection can involve naturalistic or structured observations, interviews, surveys, or physiological measures such as EEG, fMRI, and brain imaging. Naturalistic observations observe and record behavior in natural, real-world settings. A limitation of this observation is that the presence of an observer can cause unnatural behavior, but naturalistic observations permits the observation of patterns of behavior in everyday settings. Structured observations entail observing and recording behaviors displayed in a controlled environment, a situation constructed by the experimenter. Self-report measures can take several forms, each with its own strengths and limitations. Open-ended interviews, conducted by a trained interviewer, use a conversational style that encourages participants to elaborate on their experiences and explain themselves in their own words. In contrast, structured interviews present the same set of questions to all participants in a standardized way, which reduces flexibility but increases the likelihood that differences in responses reflect true differences rather than variations in questioning. Questionnaires, or surveys, typically consist of sets of questions, often in multiple-choice format, that allow for efficient data collection across large groups. However, all self-report methods face challenges, such as issues of literacy and the tendency for participants to provide socially desirable answers rather than fully accurate ones. Physiological measures provide valuable insight because they capture the body's responses directly. Unlike self-report methods, these responses are more difficult to fake, although they can sometimes be misinterpreted. Several tools are commonly used to assess brain and bodily activity. For example, electroencephalography, or EEG, records patterns of electrical activity in the brain through electrodes placed on the scalp. Computerized tomography, or CT scans, compile multiple X-ray images to produce a three-dimensional picture of the brain, showing structures, bones, vasculature, and tissue. Positron emission tomography, or PET scans, involve injecting a small amount of radioactive material into the bloodstream to track blood flow and activity in the brain. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, measures brain activity by using a powerful magnet and radio waves to monitor blood oxygen levels. Finally, diffusion tensor imaging, or DTI, uses MRI technology to track the movement of water molecules along the fibers that connect different regions of the brain, offering a view of neural pathways. Together, these methods allow researchers to study brain structure and function in ways that go beyond what people can report about themselves. Research designs include case studies, correlational research, experimental designs, and developmental designs. Case studies provide deep insight into single individuals. Correlational studies examine associations between variables but cannot prove causation. Experimental designs test causal relationships by manipulating variables, with random assignment ensuring fair comparison. In an experimental research design, the dependent variable refers to the behavior or outcome being measured, while the independent variable is the factor that the researcher manipulates to determine its effect on that behavior. A key feature of this design is random assignment, which ensures that each participant has an equal chance of being placed in either the experimental or control group. This process helps create groups that are as similar as possible in their pre-existing characteristics, strengthening the validity of the findings. When applying experimental methods to developmental research, it is especially important to account for age and changes over time, as these factors can significantly influence both behavior and responses to experimental conditions. Developmental research designs provide different ways to study how people change over time. A cross-sectional design compares groups of individuals of different ages at a single point in time, allowing researchers to examine age differences, though results may also reflect cohort effects, differences tied to the unique historical and cultural experiences of people born around the same time. In contrast, a longitudinal design follows the same group of participants across multiple time points, offering valuable insight into age-related changes within individuals. A sequential design combines elements of both approaches by studying multiple cohorts over time. Although more complex, this method allows researchers to separate the effects of age, cohort, and developmental change, providing a more comprehensive understanding of human development. Ethical principles guide research with humans. Researchers must do good, avoid harm, act with integrity, ensure justice, and respect autonomy. Informed consent is essential, ensuring participants voluntarily agree with full understanding. Special care is needed with vulnerable groups, such as children or individuals with cognitive impairments. Confidentiality must be protected, though sometimes researchers face dilemmas balancing protection with study goals. Ethical issues are especially important when studying lifespan human development, as researchers must protect vulnerable populations who may not be able to fully advocate for themselves. Informed consent is central to this process, yet it becomes complicated when working with minors or adults with limited cognitive capacity. For example, passive consent is sometimes used with children, where parents are notified about the study and must respond only if they do not want their child to participate. Ethical concerns also extend to confidentiality, which ensures that the participants' responses are kept private and not disclosed to others. However, challenges can arise when certain groups are expected to engage in potentially risky activities, or when researchers must balance their obligation to protect participants with other ethical responsibilities. These considerations make it clear that ethical decision-making is critical at every stage of the lifespan. Applied developmental science uses research to address real-world problems and promote positive outcomes. It studies how individuals interact with their contexts and applies findings to reduce disparities and support healthy development. A key idea is intersectionality. People hold multiple identities, such as gender, race, ethnicity, class, sexual orientation, and disability status, that interact with systems of power and privilege. Each person's development is shaped by the convergence of these identities and the context in which they live. Historically, marginalized groups have often been excluded from research. Studying intersectionality helps illuminate inequality, oppression, and resilience across the lifespan.